the alien queen had ruled the galaxy for over 300 cycles. Her name alone could stop wars before they even began. Entire star systems whispered her titles, and planets trembled beneath her command. She had faced enemies stronger than comets and armies larger than moons. She had seen betrayal, witnessed revolutions, and outlived kings and generals alike. Yet nothing, had ever shaken her like the question she now whispered to herself in the solitude of her private chamber. Are my hybrids? The words felt strange, even forbidden. The chamber was filled with silence, but the silence was heavy, crushing. The royal walls, decorated with the shimmering bones of long-dead cosmic creatures, seemed to close in. The queen had never feared weakness, yet a cold knot twisted in her chest. This was not about politics, power, or war. This was about her family. Across from her stood Princess Lyra, her only daughter. Lyra's skin glowed faintly under the chamber's soft luminescence, a reminder of her alien heritage. Her eyes, sharp and intelligent, reflected the same courage that had made her the pride of the empire. But there was vulnerability now, something raw and human in her posture. Beside Lyra stood a man, a human, Captain Aaron Hayes. Aaron had no royal blood. His flesh was soft, fragile. His eyes were ordinary, unmarked by psychic power or the deep heritage of their line. Yet he carried himself with a calm certainty that none in the empire could have predicted. He did not bow. He did not kneel. He did not tremble. He simply stood there beside the woman he loved, the woman who had chosen him above the galaxy. The queen's eyes narrowed. Every instinct, every lesson drilled into her through centuries of rule screamed that humans were weak, that humans would fail. And yet, the daughter she had raised with endless care and strictness, the daughter she had trained for court and war, had done the impossible. She had fallen in love with one. She had married one. And now she carried his child. "Yes, mother," Lyra said, her voice steady but soft. "You're our half-human." The words hung in the air like a deadly comet. For a moment the queen could not breathe. Her mind raced with possibilities. The law, the ancient, unyielding law of the empire, did not allow hybrid heirs. They were dangerous. They were forbidden. They were a threat to everything she had built. The law demanded exile for the mother, execution for the father, and the children would be taken. And yet she looked at her daughter, at the curve of her belly, at the trembling smile that carried hope and defiance in equal measure. The silence stretched. Outside the chamber, the courtiers and guards whispered rumors, sensing that history itself was shifting. The queen's mind wandered to memories she rarely allowed herself to touch. She remembered the first time she held Lyra, soft and tiny in her hands, promising that she would protect her from every danger. She had kept that promise through battles, through betrayal, through the collapse of entire alliances. And now, for the first time, she felt powerless. Aaron took a step forward, his voice calm but firm. "If your law demands my life," he said, "then take it. But you will not touch my wife. You will not touch my children." The queen studied him. She had seen warriors fall, generals die, entire fleets destroyed. She had never before witnessed courage like this, a mortal, fragile human standing unyielding before the most powerful being in the universe. There was no threat in his stance, only a quiet certainty, an unshakable protection. And in that moment she realized something she had not expected. She was not afraid of losing power. She was afraid of losing her daughter to the cold hand of the law she had sworn to uphold. For the first time in centuries, the queen delayed judgment. The courtiers shifted uneasily. The High Council would demand answers, and the galaxy would soon want her decision. Yet the queen remained silent, her mind caught between duty and love, between law and heart. Her eyes softened as she looked at her daughter and the human beside her. "So, she whispered, more to herself than to anyone else, "are not entirely alien." Lyra nodded. "No, mother, but they are strong. They carry the best of both worlds." The queen's hands clenched into fists. Strength, courage, love. These were the qualities she valued most, even above the purity of blood. And now she faced the impossible task of reconciling the laws of her empire with the beating hearts of those she loved most. For the first time in her long, immortal life, the alien queen felt something she had not felt in centuries: uncertainty. And yet, amid the fear, a strange flicker of hope began to glow, as fragile and bright as a newborn star. The galaxy had shifted, and she knew one thing for certain: nothing would ever be the same again. The day after Princess Lyra revealed her secret, the palace was not the same. Whispers filled the corridors like restless ghosts. Courtiers exchanged hurried glances. Guards, normally stoic and unshakable, looked uneasy. The news of a human husband and hybrid heirs spread faster than the light-speed messengers could carry it. The alien queen sat alone in the Hall of Records, the weight of the galaxy pressing down on her shoulders. The ancient tomes around her were filled with the laws of the empire, written in scripts that shimmered with power. She traced her fingers over the cold stone floor as she remembered the words that had haunted her ancestors for centuries. No hybrid shall inherit the throne. No human shall stand in the bloodline. The penalty is exile, death, and removal of the offspring. The law was merciless, and it had been enforced without question for centuries. Entire families had been destroyed to keep the bloodline pure, and now her daughter, the only heir of her heart, had shattered it. Lyra entered quietly, her hand brushing the human insignia at Aaron's side. She did not kneel, but she lowered her eyes respectfully. "Mother," she said softly, "I know what this means. I know the law." The queen raised her hand, halting her. "You do not understand, Lyra," she said, her voice steady but cold. "This law is older than you, older than me. It has preserved the strength of our empire. If I ignore it, the High Council will rise against me. The people will turn their rage toward you, and the moment they see your children, they will see an abomination." Lyra's shoulders sank slightly, but her voice did not falter. "I have chosen love over fear. I have chosen life over law. My children are innocent. They are not a threat. They are part of you, part of the empire." Aaron stepped closer, his human hand brushing hers. "And I will protect them," he said. "I will stand between them and anyone who wishes them harm, even the empire itself." The queen's eyes softened for a fraction of a moment, but then hardened again. Duty had been drilled into her for centuries. Power had always come first. Law had always been above emotion. And yet, looking at her daughter, at the human who dared to stand unbroken before her, something inside her shifted. The High Council did not wait. Within the hour, the chamber was filled with the empire's most influential leaders. They demanded judgment. They demanded the law be enforced. Their eyes, sharp and calculating, stared at the human with disdain and at the princess with anger. "This is impossible," shouted one counselor. "We cannot allow the bloodline to be tainted. The queen must act." The queen stood, her towering presence silencing them instantly. Her voice was calm, almost gentle, yet it carried the authority of centuries. "The law has existed for centuries," she said. "But does that mean it is infallible? I have seen countless warriors fall, countless planets burn, and yet the strongest among them are not always those with perfect blood. Strength comes in many forms. Courage comes in many forms. Love comes in many forms." The counselors shifted uncomfortably. Some whispered to each other, afraid to contradict her. The queen's gaze returned to her daughter and Aaron. "I will not make a decision based on fear," she continued. "If you wish to challenge the law, then you must prove that your family can survive against the trials of the empire." A murmur ran through the chamber. The trial of worth was a ritual older than the throne itself. No human had ever survived it. Many alien warriors, born and bred for battle, had perished under its merciless tests. The queen had only spoken of it in whispers, never expecting that it would be needed for a human and her hybrid heirs. Aaron did not hesitate. He stepped forward, looking into the queen's eyes. "I will face your trial," he said. "I will prove that my love and my strength are enough to protect my family. Whatever you demand, I will endure." The counselors gasped. A human, standing unbroken, offering to risk his life for the law that should have condemned him. The queen, for the first time in centuries, felt something she had almost forgotten: awe. Her heart, hardened by centuries of duty, began to soften. Perhaps the law could be rewritten. Perhaps love could survive the empire's traditions. But first, she had to test him. "Very well," she said, her voice echoing through the chamber. "He shall face the trial of worth. If he fails, the law will claim him, his wife, and the children yet to be born. If he survives, then perhaps the empire can learn to value more than blood alone." Lyra's eyes filled with tears, but she smiled through them. Aaron nodded, resolute. The weight of the empire pressed down on them both, yet they stood unbroken, ready to fight not just for life, but for the future of love itself. The queen watched them. Fear still lingered in her chest, but now alongside it something stronger, a fragile, trembling hope that perhaps, just perhaps, her daughter's choice would not destroy the empire, but change it forever. The trial of worth was not a test of mere strength. It was a crucible designed to crush even the proudest of warriors. The arena was massive, a swirling vortex of shifting landscapes, artificial storms, and challenges drawn from the fiercest corners of the galaxy. It had broken heroes and legends, and now a human, a fragile, soft-skinned human, was about to enter. Aaron Hayes walked forward, his human lungs filling with alien air. His heart beat fast, but his eyes were steady. Around him, alien spectators filled the stands, their expressions a mix of curiosity, fear, and ridicule. They whispered among themselves, "No human can survive this. The empire will be preserved. The law will be honored." The queen watched from her throne, silent, yet every muscle in her body tense. She had seen countless warriors attempt this trial, many of them more physically powerful, more genetically perfect than any human could ever hope to be. And yet, in that moment, she could not tear her eyes away from the man who had dared to love her daughter. The first test began immediately. Gravity fields stronger than any planet's core twisted and crushed the arena. Rocks fell from the sky like meteors. Alien warriors who had entered before had been thrown aside, broken in seconds. Aaron stumbled, his knees buckled. Pain shot through his muscles and every bone in his body screamed. He wanted to fall, to give in, to surrender. But a memory flashed in his mind. Lyra, her eyes soft with trust, her hand brushing his. He gritted his teeth and rose. Slowly, agonizingly, he began to crawl forward, gripping the jagged rocks and forcing his body to move. The crowd fell silent. Even the fiercest alien champions had never endured such a display of sheer, stubborn will. The second test came as a psychic storm, twisting reality and bending the mind. Past fears, doubts, and horrors appeared before him as visions. He saw worlds burning, armies falling, and even the faces of those he loved in danger. Aaron had no psychic shield. His mind was a fragile human thing, untrained and unprotected. Yet he did not panic. He remembered the warmth of Lyra's hand, the heartbeat of the children she carried. He focused on love, on family, and the visions lost their power over him. Where others would have crumbled, he endured. Hours passed. Each test became more impossible than the last. Fields of fire that could melt stone. Tunnels filled with creatures that could devour a warrior in a single bite. Labyrinths of shifting walls designed to trap the mind. Every challenge was a gauntlet, and every step left Aaron bleeding, bruised, and trembling. Yet he pressed on. The spectators, once confident in the Empire's law, began to murmur in disbelief. How could a human survive what gods themselves had designed to kill? His determination was unlike anything they had ever seen. Some began to cheer quietly, secretly rooting for him. Others turned away, unwilling to witness what they considered impossible. The queen remained silent, watching every moment with a mixture of fear and awe. She had never expected this. The law was old. It was merciless. But here was a human, fragile and mortal, defying centuries of expectation with nothing but courage and love. By the final test, Aaron was barely standing. His body was torn, his muscles screaming with exhaustion. He faced the ultimate trial, a chasm too wide to cross, with a storm of energy that could annihilate anyone who stepped near. He looked across the gap and saw Lyra's face, bright and unwavering in his mind. He thought of the children, the future of a family the Empire had never imagined. And then he leaped. Time seemed to freeze. Energy whipped around him, but his body pushed forward. He landed on the far side, battered but alive. The arena fell silent. Even the most hardened aliens could not believe their eyes. A human had survived. The queen rose slowly, her eyes glistening. She had expected defiance, arrogance, or failure. Instead, she saw courage, love, and sacrifice. The law demanded punishment for the human, for Lyra, and for their unborn children. But now, the impossible had happened. For the first time, the queen's mind wavered. Perhaps the law had been written too rigidly. Perhaps strength was not only measured in blood or power, but in the will to protect, to endure, and to love. Aaron collapsed into the medical wing, broken but alive. Lyra rushed to his side, her tears falling freely. The unborn children moved gently in her womb, as if sensing their father's victory. The queen stood and watched silently, knowing that the Empire had changed forever. A human had survived the trial of worth, and nothing would ever be the same again. The palace was quieter than usual after the trial of worth. The arena had emptied, the crowd dispersing with whispers of disbelief. A human had survived what countless alien warriors could not, and the Empire would never forget it. But in the silence of her private chamber, the alien queen sat alone, staring at the stars outside her window. She was not thinking of laws or traditions now. She was thinking of her daughter and of herself. Centuries ago, before she became the queen she had loved. Not a soldier, not a prince, not a warrior of her kind, but a being from another species. His skin had been different, his heart fragile, yet he had made her laugh in ways no one else could. The Empire had called him unworthy. The laws had forbidden their union. And in the end, the Empire had taken him from her. She remembered the emptiness, the cold nights in the palace, the silence that followed his absence. Pain had shaped her into the ruler she became, a queen who put law and order above everything else. Love had become a luxury she could not afford. Now, centuries later, she saw the same fire in her daughter's eyes that she once carried herself. Princess Lyra had chosen love over fear. She had chosen life over law. And she had brought a human, fragile, ordinary, yet extraordinary in courage, into the heart of the Empire. The queen's hand shook slightly as she reached for the carved railing in her chamber. Fear had never touched her like this before. This was not fear of war, not fear of betrayal, not fear of rebellion. This was fear of loss, fear of seeing her daughter endure the same heartbreak she had suffered, fear of seeing innocence destroyed by rules written long before love existed in her world. Her mind flashed back to the arena. Aaron had faced storms, beasts, psychic visions, and impossible challenges. He had bled, he had suffered, and yet he had not fallen. He had endured everything, not for glory, not for power, but for Lyra and for the children she carried. The queen realized something startling. It was not the human she feared, it was losing her daughter, losing her family to a law that had long outlived its purpose. The law had demanded obedience, but it had never taught mercy. And for the first time in centuries, she questioned herself. Was the law stronger than love? Was power more important than life? Footsteps echoed in the chamber. Lyra entered quietly, her hand resting on her stomach, eyes searching for the truth in her mother's face. "Mother," she said softly, "you have been silent for too long. What do you see?" The queen did not answer immediately. She looked at her daughter, at the human who had risked everything, and at the tiny life growing within Lyra. Memories of her own youth, her own forbidden love, swirled like a storm in her mind. "I see courage," she whispered finally. "I see something I have not seen in centuries. I see a human who the impossible to protect what is rightfully yours. I see a love that is stronger than any law." Lyra's eyes filled with tears, but a soft smile appeared. "Then you understand. They are not just children, they are hope. They are the bridge between worlds." The queen nodded slowly. Fear still lingered, but it was now tempered with something unfamiliar: pride. She thought of the empire, of centuries of unyielding law, and realized that perhaps the empire could learn from this. Perhaps it could value courage, love, and family as much as strength and bloodline. Aaron entered quietly, leaning on Lyra for support. His body was bruised and broken, but his eyes were steady, filled with the same determination the queen had witnessed in the arena. He looked at her, waiting, trusting. In that moment the queen understood fully. He had not fought for power. He had fought for family. For the first time she felt something she had not allowed herself to feel in centuries: humility. A human, fragile and ordinary by every measure, had taught her a lesson she could not ignore. Strength was not only in muscle or mind, it was in heart, in love, and in the will to endure against impossible odds. The queen rose from her seat, her long robes brushing the floor. She approached Aaron slowly, placing her hand briefly on his shoulder. "You have proven more than I could have imagined," she said softly. "Not just to the empire, but to me. My fear was never of you. It was of losing what matters most." Aaron nodded, humbled but proud. Lyra squeezed his hand gently. Together they stood before the queen, a family forged not by law, not by blood, but by courage and love. The stars outside the chamber seemed to shine brighter that night. The galaxy had witnessed something rare: a human surviving the impossible, and a queen realizing that fear could be replaced by hope. The empire would never be the same. And the queen, for the first time in centuries, allowed herself to hope that love could survive even in the coldest halls of power. Aaron lay in the medical wing, his body battered from the trial of worth. Machines hummed softly around him, monitoring his fragile human heartbeat, his broken bones, and the deep exhaustion that threatened to claim him. Every inch of him ached. Every breath felt like fire. Yet despite the pain, he refused to close his eyes. He had survived the impossible trials, but the true challenge, the judgment of the empire, was only beginning. Princess Lyra refused to leave his side. Her hand rested gently on his chest, feeling the rise and fall of his heartbeat. She spoke softly, words meant only for him. "You survived because of love, Aaron, because you believed in us, because you refused to give in." Aaron tried to smile, but the effort caused a wince. "I did it for you, for our children, for our family." His voice was weak, but it carried the strength that had carried him through storms, psychic visions, and deadly creatures. Outside the medical wing, the royal guards waited tensely. The palace was abuzz with rumors and speculation. The empire had never faced such a situation. A human, a fragile species, surviving the trial of worth and daring to stand in the center of imperial power. The High Council demanded answers, expecting a swift execution of the law, but the queen, she had not spoken yet. The queen arrived quietly, her long robes flowing behind her. Her eyes, normally sharp and unyielding, softened as she looked at Aaron. For centuries she had believed that strength came only from power, blood, and perfection. Yet here was a human who had proven her wrong. He had no special blood, no psychic shields, no alien strength. Only determination, courage, and love. And it had been enough. "Why did you fight?" she asked, her voice gentle but piercing. "Why risk everything, knowing the law could take your life?" Aaron's eyes met hers. "Because my family deserves a chance. Because my children deserve to be born without fear. Because the woman I love deserves the right to choose her life." His voice faltered, but only for a moment. "I am weak compared to your warriors, but my heart will not fail." The queen studied him carefully. She had expected arrogance, desperation, perhaps foolish bravado. Instead, she saw truth. She saw strength that could not be measured in muscle or psychic power. She saw the courage to stand against impossible odds, to endure pain, and to protect those he loved. Lyra's eyes filled with tears. She had watched the man she loved face death again and again. She had prayed, she had feared, and she had never wavered in her belief that he could survive. Now, seeing him here, broken but alive, she felt a mixture of relief and awe. The queen took a step closer, her presence immense yet strangely comforting. "You have proven more than I could have imagined," she said softly. "Not just to me, but to the empire. The law demands punishment for your union, for your children. But you have shown that strength is not only in blood, but in heart, in courage, in love." Aaron struggled to sit upright. "Then, what will happen to us?" he asked quietly, hope and fear mingling in his voice. The queen looked away for a moment, staring out at the stars beyond the palace. Her mind raced, recalling centuries of rigid law, countless families destroyed to preserve the so-called purity of the empire. She remembered her own lost love, and the endless nights of longing and pain. She realized then that the fear she felt was not for the law, but for her daughter. Turning back to them, the queen's voice was firmer now. "I cannot undo the past, but I can shape the future. If you are to survive, it will not be by law alone. It will be because you have earned it." Lyra reached out, pressing her forehead to Aaron's. "We have already earned it," she whispered. The queen's gaze softened. For the first time, she felt pride not as a ruler, but as a mother. A human, fragile yet indomitable, had risked everything to protect her daughter and the children growing within her. The empire's law, rigid and unyielding, had almost crushed them, but love, courage, and determination had prevailed. Outside, the palace seemed to hold its breath. History had shifted. The queen's decision had not yet been spoken aloud to the empire, but the seed had been planted. A human could stand among aliens, a family could thrive despite law, and courage and love could change the course of centuries. Aaron's hand found Lyra's, their fingers intertwining despite his trembling strength. The queen stepped back, letting them be, feeling a strange, unfamiliar warmth in her chest. Hope. For the first time in centuries, hope. The empire was watching. The world was waiting. And a human, broken but unbowed, had proven that even the smallest heart could shake the foundations of a galaxy. The High Council had gathered in the Grand Hall, their faces sharp with expectation and anger. They had been summoned urgently, and rumors had spread like wildfire. A human had survived the trial of worth. A human had dared to stand beside the princess. And now the question loomed over the empire. Would the law be enforced, or would the queen show mercy? The chamber was vast, with towering pillars carved from iridescent stone, reflecting the twin suns outside. The counselors whispered nervously among themselves, glances exchanged in silent accusations. "Impossible," one muttered. "The law cannot bend for a human." "It is an abomination," another hissed. "The bloodline must remain pure." The queen entered slowly, her presence immediately silencing the murmurs. Centuries of authority radiated from her form, but there was something different in her stride, something softer, something that hinted at a change the council had never imagined. She ascended the throne, her gaze sweeping over the assembly. "I have listened to your demands," she said, her voice calm but resonant. "I have considered the law as it has stood for centuries, and I have seen what courage truly looks like." The counselors exchanged uneasy glances. Courage, from a human. None had ever survived the trial of worth, yet here one had, unbroken and alive. "The law forbids hybrid heirs," the queen continued. "It forbids unions that cross species, claiming the empire's purity must be preserved. But I have witnessed something extraordinary. I have seen a human, fragile by your standards, endure trials that would crush even the strongest of our warriors. He has fought, not for power, not for glory, but for love, for family, for the children yet to be born." A murmur ran through the council. Some whispered in disbelief. Some stared at the queen with shock. Others bristled at what they considered blasphemy. "I am the ruler of this empire," she said, her voice rising, carrying the weight of centuries. "I will not allow fear or outdated law to dictate the future of those I love. The law shall change. It shall recognize that strength is not measured by blood alone, but by courage, sacrifice, and heart. It shall recognize that love is the foundation upon which true power rests." The chamber fell silent. Some counselors' jaws tightened. Others lowered their heads in quiet acknowledgement. The empire had never heard such words spoken from a ruler. It was not just law being rewritten. It was the meaning of leadership, of family, of honor itself. "By my authority," the queen continued, her eyes sweeping toward the princess and the human standing in the gallery, "I hereby abolish the law forbidding hybrid heirs. Captain Aaron Hayes shall be recognized as protector of the royal line. Princess Lyra and her children shall inherit the rights and protection of the empire, free from persecution or fear." Gasps echoed through the hall. Some counselors shouted objections, but the queen raised a hand and silence fell again. "You may disagree," she said calmly, "but the law reflects truth, not fear. The strength of this empire is not in the purity of blood, but in the courage of its people and the love they carry in their hearts." Lyra stepped forward, tears streaming down her face. She embraced Aaron, holding him close despite his injuries. The counselors watched in stunned silence. Some whispered quietly to each other, realizing that the empire had witnessed history, the rise of a human within the royal line and the birth of a new era. The queen's gaze softened as she looked at her daughter and Aaron. "You have chosen love over fear," she said, voice gentle now, almost maternal. "You have shown what true strength means. The empire will learn to do the same." Aaron, weak but proud, nodded. "Thank you," he whispered, "not just for me but for our children." The queen smiled faintly, a rare warmth in her eyes. Centuries of rigid law had fallen away, replaced by understanding and hope. She had feared losing her daughter. She had feared the empire's reaction. But now she realized that courage and love could overcome even the harshest rules. Outside the palace, the citizens felt the shift. The word spread quickly. The alien queen had rewritten the law. A human had earned his place beside the princess. The empire would never be the same again. For the queen, it was more than a political victory. It was a personal one. She had protected her daughter. She had embraced change. And she had finally learned that the future was not determined by fear, tradition, or power alone. It was determined by love, by courage, and by the willingness to believe in something greater than oneself. And in that moment, the empire seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the first steps of a new era, a future where humans and aliens could stand together, where love could challenge centuries of law, and where the impossible had become reality. The garden outside the palace shimmered under twin suns, golden light spilling over crystal trees and flowers that glowed with alien colors. The wind carried a faint, sweet fragrance, and distant birds, unlike any seen on human worlds, sang soft melodies. Here, far from the whispers of the council and the rigid halls of law, the alien queen walked slowly, her steps deliberate and thoughtful. Her eyes were fixed on two small figures running across the garden. The first had the faint glow of alien heritage in her eyes, sharp and alert. The second had softer features, human laughter spilling from his lips, warm and light. They chased each other, hands brushing against the tall crystal grasses, their giggles echoing through the air like music. The queen's heart swelled in ways it had not in centuries. She had ruled countless worlds, conquered nations, and tamed empires, yet nothing compared to the simple joy of watching life continue, unafraid and unbroken. These children were her, born of courage and love, not law or fear. She knelt slowly, her long robes brushing the ground, and opened her arms. The children hesitated, then ran to her, their small hands gripping her fingers. She felt warmth radiate through her, a mixture of pride, love, and awe. For centuries she had measured strength in warriors, in psychic power, in bloodlines. But now she realized the true measure of strength, heart, courage, and the bond of family. Princess Lyra stepped beside her, smiling softly, while Aaron stayed just behind, steady and protective. "They are happy," Lyra said quietly, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "They feel safe because of you, mother." The queen shook her head, tears slipping down her cheeks despite her efforts to remain composed. "No," she said gently. "It is because of all of you, Because of love, because of courage, because of hope. These children, your children, are not just part of the future. They are proof that the empire can be better, that the impossible can be made real. The twins giggled again, tugging at her robes, showing her a tiny flower they had picked along the way. One had a faint shimmer along her fingertips, the alien glow of her heritage. The other's skin was softer, human warmth radiating from her touch. The queen marveled at how different they were, and yet how perfectly they belonged together. Aaron stepped forward, his eyes meeting hers. "They are hybrids," he said softly, "but stronger than any of us imagined. Not because of their blood, but because of the courage and love that brought them into this world." The queen smiled, nodding slowly. "Yes," she whispered almost to herself. "They are not hybrids, they are bridges. Bridges between worlds, between species, between fear and hope. They carry the best of both sides, and they will teach the Empire what I have only now learned, that strength is not always measured in power but in heart." Lyra leaned against her mother, placing a hand on her shoulder. "The Empire will see it soon," she said. "They will see that humans and aliens can stand together, that love can survive law and hope can survive fear." The queen looked at the horizon, the twin suns casting long golden rays across the garden. She thought of the centuries she had lived, the battles she had fought, the laws she had enforced without question. And she realized that all of that power, all of that authority, had meant nothing if she had not protected her family, if she had not learned to value love and courage above all else. Her climbed onto her lap, one on each side. Their small hands reached for her face, their laughter filling the garden with life and light. The queen's tears fell freely now, a mixture of relief, joy, and pride. She whispered softly, holding them close, "Yes, you are mine, and you are everything the Empire should be. You are hope and love and strength all at once." Aaron and Lyra stood behind, watching their children and the queen together, feeling the unspoken bond that had survived trials, fear, and law. The Empire had changed, the law had fallen, and a human had proven that courage and love could shake the foundations of a galaxy. The queen leaned back slightly, the children still clinging to her, and gazed up at the stars beginning to shine in the twin suns' fading light. For the first time in centuries, she felt peace. Not the peace of conquered worlds or obeyed laws, but the peace of family, of hearts united against impossible odds, and of a future filled with hope. And as the night fell, the garden glowing softly, she whispered one last time, answering the question that had haunted her. "Are my hybrids?" She looked at their bright, laughing faces, at the human warmth and alien glow intertwined. "No," she said softly, a gentle smile spreading across her face. "They are the bridge the Empire never believed in. They are the future." And for the first time in her long, immortal life, the alien queen allowed herself to hope, truly hope.